teachings. I want to thank those of you who have been supporting me throughout my career over these many years for being here and viewing these class videos. And I want to also thank those of you who are brand new who have found me on YouTube with suggested videos and have watched a significant portion of my last class that I was able to see. And maybe there's some of you right now doing that same with this class. So I just really appreciate it. If you would like to email me at any point during your practice to have more explanation, you can find my email address on my website, which is T as in tame, S as in soothe, D as in dwell, mind.org. All right. And I apologize for the snafu this last week with the video. This is the third time I'm recording this class, so I'm hoping it's going to be like perfect because this is the third time I'm teaching it. The first video I accidentally covered up my microphone so you couldn't really hear me, and the second video somehow I just completely deleted, but I think I've got it all straight now. This YouTube is definitely a learning curve, learning curve that is. And so I'm learning, but I think I've gotten over the biggest hurdles, and so I think it's going to be smooth sailing from now. I've definitely been learning by trial by error, it seems like. So let's start by going over a little bit of review from the last class. We talked about what TSD mindfulness is, and it's using mindfulness techniques to tune into your head, tune into your gut, and turn into your heart. And some of the really huge benefits from practicing TSD mindfulness is that we improve our relationships. And I'm not talking just about relationships with the people in your lives, but also the stuff and the things in your lives. For example, your relationship with work, your relationship with food, your relationship with times, free time, things like that will greatly improve with this practice. And managing stress is also another wonderful benefit of TSD mindfulness. So with this teaching, the idea is that stress originates in either the mind, or what we call the mental field in TSD mindfulness, or stress originates in the gut, or stress originates in the heart. And depending on where that stress originates, which is going to be a little bit different. And that is what makes it so effective. If you use an approach for stress that develops in the mind for soothing a stress that develops in your gut, then it's not going to work as well. So we're going to learn those three ways to bring balance and relaxation and calm and peace, all those good things, to those three parts of what we call the temperamental body in TSD mindfulness, the mental field, the gut field, and the heart field. And what will happen after you practice for a while is you'll be able to discern where your stress is originating. When it comes out and you're being extra mindful of what's happening within your temperamental body, you're going to be able to notice whether this stress is originating in the mental field, the gut field, or the heart field, and so you're going to know how to manage it better. I also talked about the TSD challenge, which is practicing TSD mindfulness for 5 days a week for 30 days, and to notice your levels of anxiety, irritability, energy, focus, feelings of love and care, connections with others, perspectives on food, money, and work. All right, so, and I'll talk about this a little more at the end of the video, but it doesn't matter so much how long you practice each day. Now it's raining out. I don't know if you can hear the rain, but this is my third video take here, and now it's completely raining, but that's all right. We're going to just keep going with this. The sound of the rain is soothing. TSD mindfulness is a new practice, which is exciting because you, as students of TSD mindfulness right now, are the founding students. This is amazing. And if you really find the practice to be valuable and effective, you might one day decide to start teaching your own classes and teach TSD mindfulness to others, since this is, there's not going to be anybody else teaching it. And so that's exciting for you, and I completely support you through that process to do that. And we practiced in our actual technique last time. We practiced taking a step back in our consciousness and noticing the part of our consciousness that directs our attention. And we also took another step back from that and noticed the behavior of that part of our consciousness that directs our attention. We also talked about will and when is it beneficial to use will in your practice and when it's better to simply surrender. So we're going to go into some new material now with teachings. So I'll refer to the teachings quite a bit. The teachings are in lists. The first list has one item on the list. The second level, there's two lists of two. So there's two items on two different lists. And then the third level, three lists with three items on each list and so forth. So it's a nice logical way to organize the teachings, so it's helpful, helps you hopefully to remember them and work with them. If you go to tsdmind.org to the teachings page, you can actually download a PDF of the teachings and you can print it out and post it on your refrigerator or somewhere that you will be able to see it on a daily basis. So anyway, we're going to start with the first official teaching, which is that first list of one. And that first list is the objective, the TSD mindfulness objective, which is to move into perfect relationships by taming your mind, soothing your gut, and dwelling in your heart. So moving into these perfect relationships. So let's talk about relationships. What do I mean by that? This is going to be relationship with yourself, relationship with other people, relationships with the food that you eat, relationship with money, relationship with God, if that's part of your spiritual path, or really anything in your life. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. What about perfect? It says moving into perfect relationships. So perfect is not necessarily what you imagine it to be. It's not based on your personal expectations or the expectations of culture, right? We have a lot of cultural ideas of what perfect is and looks like and how is that defined, but that's not the kind of perfect that we're talking about. We're talking about a perfect that is defined by something larger than you. And so it's defined by a system that is larger than you. And so that might be God if that's part of your spiritual path, or it might be something else, some other version that is just as long as it's a system that's greater than you. And that is actually something that will be important for your TSD mindfulness practice, is this idea of this system that is greater than you. All right, and I shared a little story last time about, just kind of adjusting the lighting here a little bit. I shared a story last time about when I was at a friend's house and I wanted to meditate, but I didn't have my stacked stones to meditate with, because that's how I meditate with my eyes open, looking at the stacked stones. I didn't have those. So I was looking around the house to find something to meditate on, and I found these wood chips. And so I just grabbed a handful, I threw them down, and because I like to look at something from nature, something natural to meditate on. And after about 20 minutes of meditating, something really amazing happened. All of a sudden, it just looked like these wood chips were stacked just perfectly. Like there was probably a few hundred wood chips, but it looked like it took about an hour to perfectly place each one of those wood chips. It was just really miraculous, really. So that's the kind of perfection that I'm talking about. I'm talking about that kind of perfection that we can't intellectualize. It's really difficult to explain. And it comes from within, and we're looking out, rather than this perfection where we're out looking within. All right, and another important thing about these moving into these perfect relationships with TSD mindfulness is that it's gradual. TSD mindfulness is an incremental process. It's not like overnight, all of a sudden, we are experiencing all these perfect relationships. It's like peeling an onion. Peeling an onion is a wonderful metaphor for this gradual process of this moving into these perfect relationships. We shed a layer of impairment, which in turn gives us more insight, peace, and connection. And what's really wonderful about this process is that no matter where you are, no matter what layer you're on, you're always within a layer that is sweeter than the one that you just let go of. So you're always experiencing a realm that is sweeter than the one that you just let go of. And the way we get to these perfect relationships is by taming our mind, soothing our gut, and dwelling in our heart, which is the process that I'm teaching you. So when we tame our mind, we do this by noticing the subtleties of our environment, which is very traditional, typical type of mindfulness practice. We are maybe listening to a sound that we're hearing, or maybe it's something that we're looking at, or physical sensations. Maybe we're noticing physical sensations in our body. And when we focus on these present moment elements, our thoughts begin to settle. And that monkey mind begins to get tamed. So that's the practice. And then what happens is after we start to tame this monkey mind, then we start to tune into our gut, and what's going on in the gut becomes more apparent to us because we're not as distracted about what's going on in our mental field. And so what you notice in the gut could be quite subtle. It could be some physical tightness. You could notice that what's going on in the gut is actually creating some anxious thoughts in your mind, and you can see that connection. So the other important thing about TSD mindfulness is we start to see how these different parts of our temperamental body, how they play towards each other, how they interact with each other. But a lot of times, especially when I'm meditating, there's not a lot going on in my gut. So when I lead you through this process tonight, it's very possible that you won't really notice anything going on there. And that just means probably that your gut is calm and at peace and everything's good. But when I lead you through this, even if that's what's going on, still stay tuned to what I'm leading you through as far as how to go about soothing the gut. Because when the gut is active, which might not be that often for you, but when it is active, it's really powerful and it can completely take over your whole system. So it's good to have this practice and know what steps to take to soothe your gut, so when that does happen, you have those in place. And so basically, the gut is afraid of any kind of change. It's afraid of change, fears change. So one way that we can help soothe the gut is reassuring ourselves that in this present moment we are safe and the future is preserved. And one way that we can do that is we can list all the things that are going, or bring into our consciousness all the things in our life that are stable and are not going to change. It's kind of a perspective shift. So it might be like this one aspect of your life, there's a possibility there's going to be some kind of change, and the gut is kind of freaking out a little bit about it. But if we can bring into our consciousness all the other things in our life that are actually going to just remain as they are, we're still going to have the same job, we're still going to have the same kids, we're still going to be living in the same house, and so forth, then the gut will often respond positively. And that's the thing about the gut, is it is very responsive. So when you are doing this work, and say the gut is really triggered and it's taking over your temperamental body, then you are doing this work that I'm going to be teaching you, and it just switches on a dime, and then all of a sudden it just happens in an instant. It's really amazing, and then the gut just like is got it. And then the other thing, other suggestion for soothing the gut is to bring into consciousness that, that if there is a change coming up, that it's going to be in your best interest. All right, and so I'll lead you through that. So overall, the gut is a first fears change, which is quite opposite to the mind. The mental field actually desires change. So they're polar opposite. And in a way, they kind of balance each other. And you might notice that what's happening when you do this practice is that the thoughts that are going on in our mental field and then these fears are going on in our gut field actually distract us from being in the heart field. And so that's why we soothe the mental field. I'm sorry, that's why we tame the mental field. We soothe the gut field, and it allows us to move into and dwell in the heart field. And our mind is tamed and our gut is soothed and we effectively dwell in our hearts. Moving your consciousness into your heart is a step towards perfect relationship. So I'll say that one more time. Moving your consciousness into your heart is a monumental step towards perfect relationship. So I'm going to move next to the next. So we're moving on to the first list of 2. And this teaching is, the first item on that list is, anything is either a form of relationship or a form we have a relationship with. Anything is either a form of relationship or a form we have a relationship with. So when we think of the word relationship, we often think about our significant other, our children, maybe our boss. But I want you to open that up and think about other things as relationships, other things going on that these other forms that we're having relationships with. For example, money. Money is a form that we're having a relationship with. Food is a form that we're having a relationship with. And like, for example, money. Having a certain amount of money can create certain feelings, and then not having a certain amount of money can create other feelings. So it creates those emotions. And the reactions we have are the symptoms of our relationship, and then the desires define the relationship. So the relationship that we have with certain things in our lives have meaning. They're defined, like it might be practical or logical. And this practicality describes how something fits into your life, what its purpose is. The relationships could be emotional. A relationship might bring us joy, and other frustration, or other feelings. So let's consider a certain relationship and kind of walk through these ideas and see how that plays out. Let's consider a speed limit. So a speed limit is a form that we have a relationship with, and it might not be tangible. Like, speed limit isn't something that we can touch. It's not tangible, yet it is a form that we have a relationship with. And we can consider the emotions that make speed limit invokes for us. And how about the logic? How does the speed limit fit into your own logic? And circumstance can play a part in these relationships. So with the speed limit, a speed limit on one street might affect you one way, and then a speed limit on a different street in a different neighborhood might affect you in a different way. So circumstantial things can affect the relationship. So what's important to see here is that we have a relationship with everything in our lives. So let's go back to the teaching. Anything is either a form of relationship or a form we have a relationship with. So I've talked about some different forms that we have relationships with the people, with ourselves, with food, with money, with the speed limit. These are all examples of forms that we have relationships with. And so if it's not what we're talking about in our life is not the form that we're having a relationship with, then what we're talking about is the form of relationship that we have, the type of relationship that we have. We might have the type of relationship with something that's dreadful. We might have a type of relationship that's dependence, based in dependence. We might have a relationship that's indifferent. We might have a relationship that's just based in love. So there's these different forms of relationships. And what's also something that's pretty amazing here is we also have relationships with the different forms of relationships that we have. So we have a relationship with dependence. We have relationships with the idea of indifference and so forth. So there's lots of layers to this onion as well. And our relationships are driven by our desires. And when we are making choices based on our desires, when we're creating these relationships, we're living our form of relationship. If we're making choices in a relationship based on the desires of this system that's greater than us, then we're living the relationship that is of that system that's bigger than us. And that is the perfect relationship. We're living the perfect relationship when we're making choices based on that system that's larger than us. So that's another way to think about the perfection of these relationships. And so it's not how we might consider it to be perfect, but how the system larger than us considers it to be perfect. And the reason relationships are so important is because our experience in this world is directly affected by each and every relationship we have with each and everything in our realm. So this is important because our experience is directly affected by each and every relationship that we have with everything around us. And so if we improve the quality of our relationships, we in turn improve the quality of our experience, because these relationships equate to our experience. So if we improve the quality of our relationships, we in turn improve the quality of our life experience. All right, so that's why those, the anxiety, your energy, irritability, things of that nature will change when you practice. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the technique that we're going to do in this meditation. And we're going to pretty much pick up where we left off in the last class, the first class. And we are going to focus our attention on our breath more this time. Last time we were focusing on sound. But what we are going to do is we're going to take that step back and notice that part of our consciousness that is directing our attention, that part that's steering our attention. And then we're also going to take another step back and notice the behavior of that part of our consciousness that is steering our attention. And we're going to notice, is that behavior, is it childlike? Is it distracted? Is it resistant? Is it focused? If you had difficulty last time with this aspect of the meditation, where we're taking a step back and noticing that part of our consciousness that is directing our attention, don't worry. This is a really abstract concept and practice, and so it could certainly take some time to really start to experience it. So what I suggest is just to keep yourself open to this opportunity of becoming mindful of this part of your consciousness that directs your attention, and eventually it will come through. So patience, just keeping with it and staying open, and it will come eventually. And so, like we talked about last time, will, we are going to use our will in this meditation to direct our attention, and we're not going to use will for anything else. And I can't stress enough that your spiritual practice really should guide you to know when to use will and when not to use will, when it's beneficial to use will and when it's more beneficial to simply surrender. Because we have will. We're supposed to use it. And so we need to be supported in knowing when is the best time to use your will, and when is it better just to surrender. All right, so I'm going to be very clear in this meditation and future meditations that we are using our will to direct our attention. What direction is our attention in? Actually steering our attention. Is it going this way? Is it going that way? What are we focused on? So we're going to be using our will to concentrate, really, and we're not going to be using our will for any other endeavors. So if you are maybe thinking about shopping and kind of putting together a shopping list in your head while you're meditating, without purposefully doing it, but that's what you're doing, then you're kind of using your will for something different, because you're putting that intention out there that you're going to go shopping and you are intending to buy those items on your shopping list. And so that's not what we want, where we want to apply our will to, right? When we want to apply our will to what we are focused on, deciding exactly what we are focusing our attention on. So you might want to take a moment right now to notice, think about what you're not going to apply your will to in your meditation tonight. What is it that you're going to surrender to, you're not going to apply your will to tonight in your meditation? Maybe what's something that often comes up for you in meditation, it's just not where you're going to put your will tonight. Like I said, I am going to lead you to notice your breath. And if you prefer to focus on a sound instead, like we did last time, you definitely can do that. It's not as important what you're focusing on, but what is important is how you are focusing. So really focus on the method of your focus, not as much what it is that you're focusing on as far as that, what's going on in your environment. Is it sound? Is it sight? Is it physical feeling? We can be a little bit more open about that. The first part of your meditation tonight, I'm going to lead you to tame that mental field and ask you to take a step down from analysis, take a step down from simulating outcomes, take a step down from considering the past and the future. These are all aspects of the mental field. So this analysis, simulating outcomes, past and future, all part of this mental field, that when we were taming the mental field, we're really bringing that to a close and letting that go, stepping away from that. In the second part of the meditation, I'm going to lead you to be mindful of your gut field. And like I said, the gut field is not often active, so you might not notice a lot there, but it might be subtle. You might notice some tightness, physical tightness. You might notice some thoughts that are actually being kind of instigated by what's going on in the gut. Since we've calmed our mind down, tamed our mind, it's a little bit easier to see which thoughts the gut is actually creating and which thoughts are created by our mental field. I know that sounds a little complicated, but when we do the practice more, that'll make a little bit more sense. All right, I think we're ready. If you would like to lay down, you can, but if lying down while you're meditating makes you tired and sleepy, then you might want to sit up instead. Okay, so that's up to you what position that you want to be in. And so don't stop the video. This is a really good time to just keep going and do the practice. I assure you it's going to be really valuable. And so I hope that you can stay with us and do that. So find that comfortable seated position. And we're going to take a few relaxing breaths. Inhale. And as you breathe back out, feel yourself settle physically. Inhale. And as you exhale, feel yourself settle mentally. One more focused inhale. And as you exhale, feel your emotions settle. Notice your breath. What sound does your breath make? Notice the temperature of your inhale and the temperature of your exhale. Notice any tickle sensations inside your nostrils. Notice the movement of your chest. Notice how your chest moves to make it possible for you to breathe. Choose one aspect of your breath to focus your attention on. Notice and drift in another direction. Exercise your will and choose to focus on your breath. Take a step back and notice the part of your mind that focuses your attention. Notice how this part of your consciousness expresses itself to you. Continue to notice the subtleties of your breath. You might focus on sound, temperature, or physical sensation. You might decide to shift your attention to another aspect of your breath, and that is okay. You don't have to stay in the same aspect. If directing your attention towards your breath becomes challenging, notice the part of your consciousness that chooses the direction of your attention. What energy do you notice there? Is it focused? Or is it distracted? Is it spinning or jagged? Or perhaps it's clear. Apply your will to this part of your consciousness. Use your will to steer your attention towards your breath. And let go of using your will to direct anything else in your experience. Your own, notice your breath and notice the behavior of your attention. Remember, the only control we are attempting to exercise is the control of your attention's direction. Notice what happens when you purposefully apply will to your concentration. Notice if your mental field feels more settled. Now move your attention to your gut area at the belly. What physical sensations do you notice there? Perhaps you notice something less physical, more energetic, a fluttering or a vibration. To move your consciousness into your gut, you might breathe into the gut area. If you notice your attention drift in another direction, exercise your will and choose to focus on your gut field. Take a step back and notice the part of your mind that focuses your attention. Apply your will to this part of your consciousness. Use your will to steer your attention towards your breath, and let go of using your will to direct anything else in your experience. And while you're focused on your gut field, can you detect any concerns for change? Can you detect a fear of something in your future changing? How is this fear expressing itself in your gut field? If you don't notice anything coming up in your gut, you may be in balance and at peace. If this is so, simply stay focused on your gut. If there is a fear, acknowledge this fear. Notice how the concern expresses itself in your gut. It is natural and instinctual to be concerned about change. To help soothe your gut, list all that will remain unchanged in your life. What will remain the same? Notice if this list soothes your gut. If your gut is still affected, consider that if anything will change in the future, it will be in your best interest. And I'll bring this meditation to a close with the sound of the singing bowl. Welcome back. So we practice some more taming in the mental field and allowing that tameness to help us and support us to be more mindful of what's going on in the gut field. And then the next step later, future class, as we tame that, soothe that gut field, then we'll move into the heart field. All right, so I just want to remind you about the TSD challenge, and that is to practice TSD mindfulness for 5 days a week for 30 days and to notice your levels of anxiety, your levels of irritability, energy, focus, feelings of love and care, connections with others, perspectives on food, perspectives on money, perspectives on work. And I was thinking the other day about how through these first couple classes, you aren't completely practicing all of TSD mindfulness yet, because we just started working with the mental field. We just started working with the gut field today. But after about 3 classes, you should have a good first foundation for practicing TSD mindfulness. So that's probably a good time to start the challenge. But if you've already started, then that's great too. By the time we have the next class, which will be December 3rd, will be the live stream at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. You'll have some more instruction on the heart area, the heart field. So that'll be more complete. Next week, we are going to talk about the next teaching, which is we are meant to grow into perfect relationships with all things great and small. And that concludes that second list of, that first list of 2. And then we'll start the second list of 2, which is logic and survival instinct cannot wholeheartedly be trusted. Logic and survival instinct cannot wholeheartedly be trusted. So there's a lot on the website. I've mentioned it before, tsdmind.org. On the classes page, you will find a description of each class, a link to the video. There's also an RSVP form on there to RSVP for the next class. And there is a donation link to give a donation through PayPal. So if you do watch the whole class and you are learning from it, then I would really appreciate it if you could make a donation, even if it's small, just to show your support. And also on the teachings page, there are the teachings there, and then there's also a link to the blog entry that discusses that teaching. So that's also really helpful. And going back to the classes page, I forgot to mention that there's also a link to a PDF for each class for the class notes. So if you're the kind of person who benefits from reading, not just hearing someone talk about the teachings, but actually reading it, it's basically a transcript of the class. And if it helps you to make notes yourself, you can print it out ahead of time and make notes. So I'll always have that available before the live stream. So you should be able to go at least a day before the live stream and print out those notes. All right, so again, the next class is December 3rd at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. That's when it will be live streamed. All right, well, thank you so much. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to email me. You can contact me on my website at tsdmind.org. Thank you.